Hello kids, today's program is about implementing structure. Let me read out the program statement first. Implement structure to read, write and compute the average marks of the students. List the students scoring above and below the average marks for a class of n students. So you are supposed to see here, you are supposed to read. That means you are supposed to input, you are supposed to display the marks, and you are supposed to, once you have the marks, you are supposed to compute the average marks. Okay. And then once you have the average, you have to tell how many students have scored above the average and how many have scored below the average. Okay. So for example, if you have like three students, okay, and let's say the first student has scored 90 and the second student has scored somewhere around 95, and the third student, let's say, is an average student, scored 40. The thing is, first you'll calculate the sum. So 5 and 18 plus 4, 225. Here it is. You have to calculate the sum, then you have to calculate the average. Okay, so 5 times, so 3 times, so 21, 115, so 5. So the average is 75. You have to tell how many students have scored above average and below average. See here, 90 and 95 have scored above average, that is above 75, and one has scored below 40. So at the end you have to display saying that the number of students above average is 2 and below average is 1. This is one of the cases. Okay, for implementing this program you need to have structure that needs to be used. First of all, what is a structure? Okay, see the definition. The structure in C is a user defined data type that can be used to group items of the possibly different types in a single type. See, what does all these statements mean? I hope you understand what is an array. What is an array? Array is a data type which stores the elements of the same type. See, if I want to store marks of 50 students, so I can do something like this. 50 students. And if I want to store their age, I can have something like this. Or if I want to have their gender, see what happens here. One memory location for marks and it will contain 50 values. Similarly for age and similarly for generation. Now, what if there is a data type in which I can have all the different data types? See, this is not int, sorry, this is character. So, what if there is a data type, okay, a user defined, where I can store all the data types together instead of storing it in three different array variables. Okay, see, so what I can make use of? I can make use of a structure. What is a structure? I can store the types which are different under a common variable. That is a structure. See the syntax here. See the syntax. It is struct name, data type, and the different data types. Close the bracket followed by a semicolon. So you can have struct and you can have something like student. Okay. And within that, something like this. Okay. You can have struct student like this, and within that, let's say I can store int uh, gender for, let's say, 50 students, int USN 50 students. I'll give float for age 50 students, and so on. End this with the semicolon. Now this is just for one student. Okay, what if I want to store for 50 students? So something like this. Okay, so this is how it is going to work. I will show with an example here with the lab program. See, Of course, first line is the header file. Then I have from here to here, I have the declaration for the structure. See, there's a student, there's USN, marks, character, and USN is of the type integer, marks is of the type float, and name is of the type character. So all this information is stored for 10 students, S of 10. Okay, so 10 students, USN, marks, and name can be stored under this one. Okay, then you will start your main program. This has to be done before the start of your main program. Okay, so you define the structure, you tell which are the variables you need and for how many people, for example. Then void main. You have average and you have sum because you need to calculate all of this. Okay, then you have these variables. Okay, as we proceed to through the program, we'll discuss about this. See, first thing, enter the number of students. So you'll ask the number of students n. And for those n students, you need to input the USN, marks and name. See here, enter the student details. For I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. Enter the USN. So USN is of the type integer. So percentage D. But here, instead of just writing and USN, okay, and USN, you are supposed to write and ampersand. Then for which student? Because you see here, it's S of 10. So first time it should be S of 0, then S of 1. That means the first student, second student, and so on. So here you are using S of I. Okay, dot USN and so on. Okay, so for USN and for name and for marks. Okay, I hope you know for string type you don't need an ampersand symbol. Okay, so here you are going to ask how many students and here you are asking the details of the students. After you are done with that, you display the details. So here you see for I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, you are displaying those details. So USN, then the name and then the marks. Once you have this, you are supposed to calculate the sum and then the average. See here, for I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, sum, I hope you know, sum is equal to the previous, sum is the, how do you calculate the sum? Sum is the answer of the previous sum plus the current marks. So something like this, sum is equal to sum plus S of I dot marks. That means for the current student, the marks. So you will do till the loop ends. That means the total number of students. After you come out of the loop, once you have the sum, then next it's the average. So average is equal to sum divided by n. Okay. So that I placed outside because I want the sum to be calculated and for that final value you are going to calculate the average. It's sum divided by the total number of students. Then the last part, I hope you remember, the last part was to tell how many have scored above average and above average and below average. See here, for I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. So you would have calculated the average over here. Now you have to check how many students have got above average and below average. So if your marks is greater than the average, then increment a counter, else another counter. So here this counter will keep track, this m plus plus, variable is keeping track of how many students that have got above average and L is used for storing how many have scored below average. Once you have done that, that means you have calculated the total number of students above and below average, then you display number of students having marks above average is M and below average is L. Okay, so this is how the structure program works. To recall, first thing, you are supposed to input the number of students, then you input the details of those students, then calculate the sum, calculate the average. But before that, whatever you have input, you are supposed to display also. Okay, once you have done that, you'll calculate the sum, you'll calculate the average, then you'll check how many have scored above and below average, and then display the the values. See the program, if I execute, it looks something like this. Enter the number of students, so enter the student details, enter the USN. So the student has entered all these details. Okay, once the user has entered all the details, then it will display how many have scored above average and how many have scored below average. This is the structure program.